Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Social Contract of Commander podcast. I'm Mike Almond, and joining me is my co-host, Alex Lapp. Alex, what's up, man?
Not too much, Mike. We got another set review we're going to do, and this is Time Spiral Remastered.
It was so good that they came back. We're here again,
Yeah.
I guess. So, this is where I point out my ignorance a little bit here, Alex.
Yeah.
So I understand a couple of things about this set. So it is a complete reprint set.
It is. It's a master set.
Okay. Was the first Time Spiral a reprint set as well, or?
It was not,
Okay.
actually. It did have reprints, but let's talk about that.
Please.
So the Time Spiral set was within the Time Spiral block, and this was starting in 2006. It ran until 2007. And we had the Time Spiral set, we had the Planar Chaos set, and then we had the Future Sight set. Now, these are all very memorable sets, but especially Time Spiral because we got the time-shifted frames, time-shifted rarity.
Okay.
So let's talk about what does that mean? That means that in every pack, like, you know how in some other master sets, every pack has a foil?
Sure.
Well, in Time Spiral set and in this new master set, Time Spiral Remastered, every set has a time-shifted card, which is a special card rarity that it's pulling from a list of cards that are not in the normal list, and they're all in the old border frame.
Okay.
And what's interesting about this time around is they have decided to print modern cards that have never been in the old border. And when I say old border, I'm meaning prior to 2008. 8th edition.
Okay.
Excuse me. Prior to 8th edition, there was an older border. You've probably seen it. It's much blockier, much more flavorful style. A little harder to read. But these cards are printed in that style. That's Time Shifted Rarity with the purple hourglass. And those sets were selected from throughout Magic's history. And it's the same thing here. And then we have the other two sets. We have Planar Chaos, which had color shifting. Basically, we would see an effect like Damnation.
Mm-hmm.
It's a real big one, right?
Yeah.
Damnation is a color-shifted Wrath of God. That was first printed in Planar Chaos. Printed from white to black. And then in Future Sight, everyone remembers that one. We got the weird future frame with like the bubbles. That one always looked really weird. But that was the very experimental set where they would come up with a ton of new mechanics that had never been done before, like poisonous and things that had to do with time. And we'll get into some of those this time around.
For sure.
But yeah, so this set is Time Spiral Remastered. Now, it's a selection of many different cards that were printed in Time Spiral block. It's not all of them, it's some of them. And in addition to that, it has its own time-shifted cards. And these are, as I explained, cards from throughout Magic's history that are now in the old border, which some people vastly prefer. Some people don't, but some people like how it looks. And those are the time-shifted cards. You get one in each pack. So...
And you mentioned it yourself. I mean, like, you referred to one of the cards that's actually coming into the set, like Damnation. Hey,
Damnation,
real important card for black.
These are some of the big cards got printed in this block.
The packs are coming back.
Yes.
For anybody that's a horrible human being, the slivers are back.
Slivers.
But we're not going to talk about those. We're going to talk about some of the cards that are leaning more into our actual realm here for the Social Contract podcast. But we're going to do that a little bit later. What we're going to do now is examine some of the mechanics that are coming back. So it looks like we're seeing a lot of Suspend, and on my list, there's a lot of Split Second. Now, these are cards that I don't see a whole lot of instances of, but do have a pretty awesome mechanic. So, Judge Alex, we're going to go to your corner a little bit early this episode.
We dust it off here.
Yeah, let's clean off the desk, and why don't you tell me about Suspend and Split Second here?
All right. Well, welcome to the Judge's Corner, and for all of you who already know about Suspend and Split Second, you can just kick back and relax. We're going to get to our set review soon. But for maybe newer players, or if you need a refresher, these mechanics are not quite as simple as they may seem, right? So let's start with Suspend. Suspend is actually one keyword that represents 3 different effects. Just crazy. Mm-hmm. So The first one is if a card has suspend, then whenever you have priority and you're able to cast that spell, you may, as a special action, put it into exile with time counters on it equal to the number indicated. So it'll say suspend 3, suspend 4. That's how many time counters you'll put onto the card when you put it into exile. This is not casting the spell. This is a special action. It doesn't use the stack, and it can't be countered. Mm-hmm. Okay? It'll sit in exile. And then, at the beginning of your upkeep, if the card is suspended and it has time counters on it, you'll remove 1 time counter. That's the second ability. The third ability is, at the beginning of your upkeep, if it's suspended and it has no time counters on it, as in you remove the final time counter on it, then you'll have the option to cast a spell without paying its mana cost at that time on your upkeep. And if you choose not to, for whatever reason, then it will stay in exile forever. If you do choose to, and that spell is a creature spell, then that creature gains haste. Right?
Yep.
So that's how suspend works. There are some cards that interact with suspend while a card is in exile.
Yeah.
But for the most part, they pretty much just sit there and have their time counter slowly removed. You can think of the number of time counters suspend 3. That's 3 turns until you can cast it.
Right.
And then you have the opportunity.
Well, right? Or at the very least, three of your own upkeeps, unless you've got some
yes,
weird
3 of your own
triggers,
upkeeps,
etc. Something to interact with it. But yeah. I recently made a Joyra deck that I said, I'm going to try and
talk about Joyra.
I was going to say, I'm trying to make the not mean version of Joyra. This will be powerful nothing. Right. And then I did it, and it was powerful not nothing. And I felt kind of bad. So that one is...
That's the thing. You probably crammed it full of high CMC spells so you can suspend them.
Well, that I did, but I didn't do the crazy lots of extra turns and stuff like that. I put Omniscience in there as I'm not going to play this unless the game needs to end kind of thing. Right. And then literally got to a point where I legitimately accidentally drew 40 cards and just went, here we are.
The Joyra's rough to build because it's very difficult to interact with her. Once she suspends a card or allows you to suspend a card, the only option is having a counterspell ready the turn that you're going to cast it.
Right. But
there's no remove it from exile or anything.
Yeah, it's suspend is a weird mechanic. That's one commander that really, it literally revolves around that mechanic. But it's coming back kind of in full swing here, which is cool.
It's like it's suspended in time, like frozen in time. Yeah, that's what the flavor is.
It's Time Spiraled Remastered. Yeah. What? Speaking of time, lean me into Split Second here. So this is one of those things that there's so few instances of Split Second that I know of, but they're all one of those, oh my gosh, I can't do anything about this. It's so powerful effects. Am I wrong?
Right. Yeah, there are quite a few just really famous split-second cards that are great and people love them, but there's no more than, about 20 of them that are in total, and most of them do not see play. But split-second is a static ability that you'll see on the spell, and it only is functioning while that spell is on the stack. And that ability says that as long as the spell is on the stack, players can't cast other spells or activate abilities except for mana abilities, which don't use the stack. So it's effectively uncounterable.
Okay.
But even stronger than uncounterable, exiling it off the stack isn't really an option either. Some effects can end the turn and exile it off the stack.
Sure.
You wouldn't even have the option to end the turn. Now, there's 1 or 2 exceptions with morphs because morphing, turning a face down, morph face up is a special action which doesn't use the stack.
Okay.
But there's only 2 of them. They're barely worth mentioning. For the most part, Split Second says, whoa doggy, this spell is definitely going to resolve.
So help me out then. Does Split Second, and we'll get into the actual terminology on it, but does Split Second basically say there is no in response?
No, that's not necessarily true.
Okay.
So what's happening is when a spell with Split Seconds on the stack, players still have priority, right?
Uh-huh.
You'll retain priority after you cast the spell with Split Second. And you can do things that do not use the stack. You can't activate abilities that are mana abilities. You can't cast spells, but you could do other things like float mana.
Okay.
Or shoot, there's not too many things you can do. Any special action you can do, right?
Okay.
Except for playing a land. You can't really do that because the stack's not empty.
Right.
But players do receive priority.
Huh.
Like, there's a round of priority. It's just that priority that they have, the number of actions they can take is severely restricted. Yeah, there's almost nothing they can do.
Okay.
But they do still get priority, just in case. And triggered abilities, notably, those do use the stack, but those are not activated and not cast. So if you have, say, an effect, you control an effect that says whenever another player casts a spell, even if that spell has split second, the casting of that spell will still cause that triggered ability to trigger, and it will go on the stack.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh. Split second's weird.
Yeah, split second is weird. It's really interesting and cool. I think the one that people know most well in our format is Crossing Grip.
Yeah, that was the big one that came to mind.
It's 2 and a green for an instant, and it has split second, and it says, what is it? Destroy target non-land permanent.
I thought it was
artifact or
enchantment. Yeah, it's the good disenchant.
Yeah, it's 3 mana, but it's super ultra uncounterable.
Yeah,
which is great. It can interrupt a combo,
which is huge.
Yeah.
In some circumstances.
That's the annoying thing, right? Is that I've been in that situation where priority on split second was relevant before, because there are situations like that. For example, Ashnod's Altar.
Yep.
Right? If a player is performing a combo, an infinite combo, with Ashnod's Altar only has one ability, but it's a mana ability. So, even if I destroy Ashnod's Altar with Crossing Grip on the stack, split second, no abilities that can be activated except mana abilities, well, Ashnod's Altar is a mana ability, so he was able to sack his entire board in response. So, there's that.
I was going to say, the other one was the, is it Word of Seizing? The red one?
Yeah, you gain control of a creature.
I ran that, just kind of as a funny, haha, this is another steal a creature threat effect in my.
They can sack it for a mana ability.
Right. Well, I did it for my my Brian Stoutarm deck.
So you can fling it.
So I could fling it.
Yeah.
And then I realized, like, oh wait, this is any permanent. Like when somebody activates their Aether Flux Reservoir to try and kill me, and I went, no, please don't. And I took it, and then went, oh wait. This is a good card.
When they activate the Aether Flux Reservoir, it says target any target, right? Or target opponent or target player?
Permanent. Well, the Aether Flux Reservoir, that was a different thing. Because this was also a player that was doing the Bant Commander, Chulane.
Chulane.
So he was doing the Chulane, like, getting ready to cast Alaran.
Allurin,
yeah. Allurin. Yeah, I do that every single time with that
one. We talked about that in our reserve list episode. That's a great card. That's 2 green for or 2 and a green for an enchantment that says creature spells that are CMC 3 or less, maybe cast without paying their mana cost and as though they had flash.
Yeah. So that guy
is a real legacy staple.
It's a real legacy staple, and it's a real good combo piece. And just seeing that on the battlefield and going, oh, well, I was going to try and do this other thing, but I guess I need to take that away before you literally combo into infinity here.
Sure.
And it felt cool. Oh, so split second, real powerful, and it is definitely something that needs to be taken advantage of.
Well, if you gain control of Allurin, like they were still able to use Allurin's
I didn't take Allurin. I took Aether Flux Reservoir.
Oh, right.
Because they were doing.
Now, I want to make sure I don't sound stupid. Aether Flux Reservoir, does it say target opponent or target player?
I believe it says target player, but I took it because they were going to gain life every time a creature entered the battlefield at that time.
Okay.
So
because I was going to say if they activated the big laser on the stack, right? It doesn't matter you stole it, as long as you're still a legal target.
Right.
Zap.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We're good.
All right.
We did it mostly right. Just like this podcast. Mostly right.
We did it mostly right. So those are the 2 mechanics I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, and they are pretty cool, and there's a lot of stuff coming back. But in our... Ooh, can I see that? This week, we're going to actually talk about some of the cards from the previous Time Spiral that didn't come back. So we're going to talk about some cards that are really underplayed. We each think that we're bringing some interesting cards, even in a more limited sense than we normally do, to the table. If you want to grab them, you can actually help us out in the process. So we've partnered with tcgplayer.com. If you're looking for any singles, sealed product, deck boxes, sleeves, playmats, really anything to spice up your game experience, you can go to bit.ly/EDH_social or click the link in our show notes. You don't have to pay anything extra, and you'll really be helping us out by buying all the things you were going to anyway. So, Alex, why don't you start us off with a card for our listeners they may be interested in picking up that's from a previous set that didn't make it to this one?
Right. So as Mike said, we picked cards from the Time Spiral block. That's Time Spiral, Planar Chaos, and Future Sight that were in those blocks but didn't make it to Time Spiral Remastered but are still underplayed. And this is a little bit of a silly pick, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd recommend that you play this in your deck, but, you know, I'm a great fan of nice gift effects, political effects, and this is certainly one of them. Shah of Nar Isle.
Yeah.
Right? For 3 and a red, it's from Future Sight. It's a creature Ifrit. And it has Trample. It's a 6/6 with Trample and Echo 0. Let's go over Echo. At the beginning of your upkeep, if this came under your control, since the beginning of your last upkeep, sacrifice it unless you pay its Echo cost.
Okay.
All right, we'll slow that roll, right? Sacrifice it unless you pay its Echo cost. Its Echo cost is 0.
Oh.
How do you pay a cost of 0? Right. So you announce what you're going to do with the trigger. When the Echo trigger goes on the stack, you say, okay, my intention when this resolves is I'm going to either pay the 0, which is just you saying you're doing it and then activate nothing, or you choose to sacrifice it. So I know it's a little bit weird, but you do have to make that call. And if you skip it, it's a skip trigger. Right. And then it has a triggered ability below that. When Shah of Nar Isle's Echo cost is paid, each opponent may draw up to 3 cards. Sweet. So you get a big beefy boy. This is kind of like the Hunted cycle, Super cycle, where you put a big creature into play and everyone else gets something. This is the same. If you want to be able to attack with it, right, because it doesn't have haste.
Yeah, if you want to keep it.
It's a 6/6 with Trample. If you want to keep it, and if you want your friends to draw some cards, or your opponents, then you got to pay the 0. Are you going to pay the 0, Mike?
I mean, as long as everybody gives me a reason to.
So it's 31 cents. It's an 89 dex out of 220,000. It's 0% inclusion. And I can see why. Because big beaters, especially if they're only 6/6 with Trample for 4 mana, not that great in Commander. People don't like having to give their opponents extra cards. But this is just a real nice, zany card. I thought it was really cool. I've seen it before. And if you're just looking for a real janky inclusion in your next group hug deck, try this one.
I'm always looking for janky stuff in all of my decks.
Hell yeah, Mike. Let's hear about yours.
So mine is kind of weird. This is definitely not on the same level of things like Glacial Chasm and Maze of Ith, but it's interesting. I want to talk about Safe Haven. Now, this is a land that just has the ability for 2 generic mana, and tap it, you can remove target creature you control from the game. Then, at the beginning of your upkeep, you may sacrifice Safe Haven. If you do, return each card exiled with Safe Haven to the battlefield under its owner's control. So, this is a really strange ability to blink a bunch of creatures back if it sticks around. It is a good protection piece if somebody is trying to board wipe something before you get to untap and come back to your turn. I like these little kind of effects that are... Yes, it's easy to destroy because it is one card that is kind of keeping all of this ready to go.
You're putting your eggs in the basket.
Yeah, it's keeping it all in reserve, and it's one piece that if you push it out of the Jenga tower, it's going to fall apart. But I also think that the hardest things to destroy in Magic are typically lands, because the amount of things that actually target them, especially if you're in a group that is really playing with the social contract intact, that's not going to have nearly as much land destruction. There's not a ton of destroy target permanent versus destroy target creature, artifact, enchantment.
We see some pretty high-powered decks at my local game store, and there is land destruction, but there's nowhere near as much as you would think.
No.
And I have gotten my Gaia's Cradle blown up. I'm going to tell you right now, Mike, they probably wouldn't bother blowing this one up.
No. Because the reason that you keep those targeted land destruction cards.
For someone who's going to win.
You're keeping those for Gaia's Cradle.
Glacial Chasm.
You're keeping them for... Yeah, you're not keeping them for safe haven.
I got my Glacial Chasm blown up last game,
yes,
didn't
you
I?
did. You did.
Yeah.
And you know why? Because it's a real good card.
Because it's a really good card.
You know what
yeah.
would have happened if I had a safe haven? Probably would have kept it.
Yeah.
But...
It's like a spice your target.
Exactly. So this isn't like a huge card by any
It doesn't draw hate. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's also only in 401, of more than 464,000 decks on EDH Rec. If you're playing a Blink deck,
most Blink decks,
holy
yeah.
I don't know how this isn't like. I didn't look up the specifics. How this isn't in a lot more decks just because Rune is a commander? I don't understand. This is cool. I like this idea.
Tell you, Mike, people are just so averse to running these spell lands. And when we say spell lands, let's clarify. Those are lands, utility lands, that don't tap for mana. Right? So they're not spells, they are lands. But when you're in your count for your deck, it's not in your land count. This isn't land number 36. It's spell number 62.
Right.
Right. Right.
Right. And so
people don't really like running those because it's it's a spell.
It feels like it's taking away from the thing that your deck wants to do more times than not because it's a land.
It's blinking.
If I play this land on my turn for my land drop, it means that this land is not doing the land stuff.
That's the spell that I played for the turn, not the land that I played for the turn.
And I get that. And that's also why, hey, maybe don't run 40 of them. But you can't get mad at running
you can run a couple.
You know?
Yeah.
So, Safe Haven.
I'm always running my Glacial Chasm.
Always.
Yeah.
Safe Haven, good card. Shah of Nar-Isle, good card.
Good pick.
So, those are some cool cards from the Time Spiral Time Shifted set, the previous block, everything along those lines that aren't making it into this one. We're going to go take a quick break, and we're going to come back here, and we're going to get into the real meat of the episode. We're going to talk about all the cards that are coming in this set that we're excited about here at the Social Contract Podcast. We'll be right back. All right, we are back, and we are here to get into... Holy cow, there's some cards, Alex.
Yeah, Mike, we got a list here of some cards from Time Spiral Remastered, and again, these are all reprints.
Yep.
But we're going to go through some of them that tickle our fancy.
Yeah.
We're not doing a full set review.
Absolutely not.
Right.
Can't do that.
We're doing cards that are group hug, cards that are political, stacks, symmetric, things that can influence the game around them in the way that we like personally. If you want a full set review, we have some good friends over at CMDR Central. They're going to do one. EDH Rec Podcast, they're doing one. Command Zone, they're doing one. We're going to do one a little bit different.
Yep. We are talking about cards that appeal to us. And you know what? I kind of want to go ahead and start because we talked about this a little bit off air.
Yeah.
We did a Rattlesnake episode not too long ago.
Boy, we sure did.
And you know who we didn't talk about at like literally any point?
Yeah.
Mangara of Karandor. Like, this is the rattlesnakiest of rattlesnakes.
That just, something slipped through the cracks.
Yeah, but that's okay, because now we get to talk about it now. So this is a 1 generic, 2 white, legendary creature, human wizard. It's a 1/1 that has the ability tap, exile Mangara, and target permanent.
Yep. That
is a real good don't do it on a stick. Holy cow.
Yeah, that's, what is that? It's Chaozu from Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
Just attaches himself to you and then you're gone. Yeah.
Peace.
Except this guy comes back.
Yeah. If this is your commander, you just, it gets more expensive.
Once it goes into exile, then as a state-based action, you will have the decision, if you like, which you do like, please do, to move it from exile to the command zone, and then it will cost 2 extra generic mana.
It's just, there were a lot of rattlesnakes, so of course we were going to miss some. I'm really happy that they reprinted it so we could talk about it now, because this is, it's a really good card. It goes in a lot of
here's
decks.
something interesting about it. Its cost is only tap.
Yeah.
So while you do have to wait a turn unless you give it haste, if you have a way to double up the ability, Rings of Bright Hearth, right? It does double up because you don't have to exile it as part of the cost of the activation.
Right.
So if you double the ability up, you'll actually get 2 exile effects.
Man, it's a really good card. What do you got, Alex? Give me something here.
Absolutely. So here's one that I'm sure I've brought up before. This is one of my absolute chef's kiss favorite group hug creatures. Let's give it up for Heartwood Storyteller.
Yep.
Heartwood Storyteller, 1 green for a tree folk, 2/3. Whenever a player casts a non-creature spell, each of that player's opponents may draw a card. Holy moly, Mike. When this card is on the battlefield, I don't think there's been a single time I've played this card where the table collectively has not drawn at least 10 cards.
Right.
And usually more.
Yeah.
This card, so many decks run non-creature spells, most of them. And people like drawing cards. And it doesn't force them to draw cards. So they're not worried that they're going to be decked out by it. So this tends to sit and sit and sit and accumulate a ton of value. And Mike, I have this in my Vanifar deck, which, as you know, is all creatures. So I am always guaranteed to draw the most cards off of this card since I never cast a non-creature spell.
Right. And you're still assisting. You're still building and making things happen. Like,
people love this card.
It's not a mean card. Like, a lot of the symmetrical...
It's like ordering a bottomless pitcher for the table, right?
Absolutely. The symmetric effects that can be mean, this doesn't even approach it. Because it's literally you don't have to if you don't want to. And that's always good. I believe that
hey, I'm gonna draw a card.
I believe that you brought this up in one of our Ooh Can I See That's in a previous episode, and another one that we used in the Ooh Can I See That and with Dana Roach was actually Hypergenesis.
Yes,
which I'm super excited about because I'm really glad that I was ahead of the curve. Haha, they reprinted it. But yeah, suspend 3, 1 generic, 2 green. Starting with you, each player may put an artifact, creature, enchantment, or land card from their hand onto the battlefield. Repeat this process until no one puts a card onto the battlefield. So, you want to talk about something like going crazy with Heartwood Storyteller. Let's just fill everybody's hands and then see exactly what we've all got. And you know what? If that doesn't work for you, and again, you're a terrible human being, then you could just put a ton of lands on the field and then sweep everything away.
Blow them all up.
But don't do that. Be a friend.
Right.
Be a friend. But yeah.
So let's talk about this one, Mike, because this is the first suspend card we have, and we did mention this on our episode with Dana. If you know Dana Roach from the CMDR Central podcast and from the EDH Recast, absolutely. Do yourself a favor, go subscribe to both of those, and then go listen to our episode with him. Because he's great. But we talked about this card, and Mike, this card has no mana cost. And I don't mean that the card has a mana cost of 0.
Nope.
I mean, if you look at this card, the name has no number next to it. And that is because it cannot be cast by normal means.
Sure.
Right? You can cascade into it because its CMC is 0, and it is a spell. But you can't cast this out of your hand and choose to ignore the suspend part. You can only suspend it for 3, for 1 green. And because of that, it's not a green card, except that it has a color indicator on its type line. You can see if you're looking at the card, there's a little green dot on the left side. That tells you that despite the fact that there's no mana cost, which would determine the color of the spell, it is still green, Mike.
And there's a couple of cards like that for the other colors. What do you want to?
Yeah,
do you
let's talk about one of my favorites. I love this one. Another one in the same cycle, Living End.
Yeah.
Living End is a black sorcery with no mana cost. Suspend 3 for 2 double black. Each player exiles all creature cards from their graveyard, then sacrifices all creatures they control, then puts all cards they exiled this way onto the battlefield. So that's a lot. It's real simple. All the creature cards in your graveyard are going to come out of the battlefield. Then everything that was on your battlefield before is sacrificed. So you do the switcheroo.
Yep.
Battlefield to graveyard, graveyard to battlefield. This is great. I love this. I love everyone just exploding cards out of their graveyard. I love that I get the maximum value because right before I cast it, I can sack my whole board in response and get it all back. Get all my ETBs. Mike, I love this card so much.
This is one of those cards that I'm glad that this has suspend. So it's a, hey, this is a really powerful.
Players know it's coming.
You all know what's coming. Prepare yourself.
So you better get your board in the graveyard right now. But, Mike, what if I decide not to cast it?
Right.
Then your whole board's in the graveyard. What have you done?
Suspend is weird.
You can really play with people, can't you?
Suspend. You said that with a little bit too much joy.
You can hear the smile. There's another one in this cycle, Mike. It's a little less common, but it's still in there. Restore Balance.
Yeah.
This one is much, much meaner than any of the others, right?
See,
because this is based off of balance.
It is.
Yeah.
But like all things that have a clock, the fact that it's rotated
this is a
lot longer.
Clock.
Go ahead and read Restore Balance.
So
for
Restore
us,
Balance is a sorcery with no mana cost. Suspend 6 for a white mana, single white. Each player chooses a number of lands they control equal to the number of lands controlled by the player who controls the fewest, then sacrifices the rest. Players sacrifice creatures and discard cards the same way. So, for lands on the field, creatures on the field, and cards in your hand, you look around the table, who has the least number? Let's say Mike has 3 lands, 3 creatures, and 3 cards in hand. Everyone at the table has to go ahead and sacrifice any number over that. So you'll choose 3, sack the rest, and discard the rest.
If we're talking about suspend 6, and I've got 3 lands and 3 cards in hand, and that I've done something very wrong. So at that point,
well, you know, Mike, it's possible for you to like flash this out with either As Foretold or Cascade.
Oh god,
definitely possible.
Oh god, no.
This is based on balance, which is banned.
Yeah.
This is based on a banned card. Now, the other two, Hypergenesis based on Eureka, it's not banned, but you've probably never seen it because it's $200.
Yeah.
Living End does have a version that sees a lot of play. Living Death, they're the same effect, but it costs 1 mana extra. And this one is based on balance, which is 1 and a white for this same effect. And that effect was deemed so devastating by the RC that they banned that card. But this card is legal, Mike, because it takes 6 turns to go off.
So these are all part of the suspend, 0 mana cost, suspend, do something cool, and they're
copies of a card that already exists.
Yeah, so there's the blue one, which what was it, Alex?
That was Ancestral Vision.
Yeah, which
Mike.
You know what? It's cool, legal Ancestral Recall. Guess what?
We'll read it off, but we're not going to talk about it. Ancestral Vision is a sorcery, no mana cost, suspend 4 for a single blue. Target player draws 3 cards. That's Ancestral Recall. Ancestral Recall's banned. This card isn't. If you like that, play it. We're not talking about it.
Moving on, because we have to talk about the Wheel of Fate here.
Yes.
This is suspend 4 for 1 generic and a red. Each player discards their hand, then draws 7 cards. You talk about wheels being wheelie good. Here's another one. And we could always use more wheels, right? Everybody loves a wheel. There's no way for you to take advantage of something where everybody has to discard their hand and then draw 7 cards.
Well,
right?
You could prep your hand.
You can absolutely do that. Now, the fact that this is suspend 4, so everybody can see it coming.
That's the idea. This is the nice version.
This is the very nice version. And
everyone's ready when this comes around.
Yeah, there's a reason we're talking about this and not some of the other wheels that exist whenever we do these kind of sets. I'm really happy that the suspend mechanic exists and that they're coming back in this remaster. Right. It's very, very cool. You know what, though? Maybe I'm sick and tired of all of these people casting suspend spells and doing it on their upkeep and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe I want to shut all of that down, Alex. Is there a way that I could possibly do that in this set?
I've got one for you right here, Mike. How about Teferi Mage's Zolfir?
Oh man, I've heard good things about that guy. Crazy planeswalker stuff, right?
This is from before he became a planeswalker.
Before the spark?
Before the spark. Well, he has the spark, but it wasn't ignited yet.
Ah, got it.
All right. So this is the OG Teferi. Teferi Mage's Zolfir is 2 blue. It's 5 mana. For a legendary creature, human wizard, 3/4 with flash. And he says, creature cards you own that aren't on the battlefield have flash. So you may play creature spells from any zone you can play them from, including your command zone, anytime that you could cast an instant.
Cool.
Which is anytime you have priority, right? But it also has a second clause. Each opponent may cast spells only anytime they could cast a sorcery. So that really slows people down. Even if it's an instant, they can only cast it on their turn, on their main phase, when the stack is empty and they have priority.
Love it.
Even if it's an instant speed spell.
See, you say it really slows people down. I'd like to think that this is the
It makes people play fair.
Yeah, we're going to play fair.
Yeah.
You know what's going to happen? Everybody.
Except for you. You don't have to play fair.
There's no more counter spells. Everything is just getting cast.
Yeah.
It's
well, you can
fun.
counterspell.
Well, I'm not telling anybody that, Alex. Shh.
Oh, okay.
Admittedly,
it's a little for me, none for you.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Listen, if you're gonna keep trying to corrupt me into this stacks thing, like that,
Right.
you got to let me lean into it at my own
Well,
pace.
well, Mike, let's talk about playing fair with stacks. This is another card that makes people play fair, right?
Sure.
How about Lavinia Azorius Renegade?
Excuse me, I got to throw up. Go ahead. Well,
What's wrong with Lavinia? Lavinia Azorius Renegade, white-blue for a 2/2, legendary creature, human soldier. Each opponent can't cast non-creature spells with converted mana cost greater than the number of lands that player controls. So, if you have 3 lands, you can't cast non-creature spells that are CMC 4 or greater.
sure.
Even if you have the mana rocks and the mana sources to pay for it, you're not allowed to, right? Whenever an opponent casts a spell, if no mana was spent to cast it, counter that spell.
See?
So, pacts, suspended cards,
Yeah.
anything that you cast for free from Cascade, it's countered. Lavinia automatically counters it.
I don't dislike Lavinia as much as like most stack things, but I just
She makes you play extremely
she makes
fair.
you play extremely fair. And my favorite thing to do in Magic is get value. I love value.
She's the anti-value.
She
This
says-
is the fun police right here.
Well, you know what? Then I'm going to forget Lavinia. Bleh.
All right, that's
I'm
fair
leaving.
enough.
I'm leaving. I want something with more value. So you know what? We're going to talk about Gauntlet of Power.
All right.
Yes, give me the Infinity Gauntlet. As Gauntlet of Power enters the battlefield, choose a color. Creatures of the chosen color get +1/+1. Whenever a basic land is tapped for mana of the chosen color, its controller adds an additional 1 mana of that color. And this is a 5 generic color, 5 generic mana artifact. So, I mean, I know everybody can sit there and say, "Oh, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna double all of my mana. We're gonna do that." But you know what you
No,
could
we're
do?
gonna double everyone's mana.
You could double a lot of people's mana. Or you could double everybody's mana but the arch enemy. Or this is why we like Gauntlet of Power. Heck, somebody got a whole bunch of tokens. You know what? They're going to be 2/2s
Pump 'em.
now. Let's go. I love Gauntlet of Power. It's a very good
This
card.
is great because, Mike, there are a lot of effects that increase people's mana. They're mostly in green and red.
Yes.
This is one that's available to decks of any color,
Right.
which is fantastic.
There's not a ton of white mana doublers out there.
Like, this is an expensive boy, Mike. This now we don't have a cost for the reprint yet, but prior to the reprint, the original printing of this $23. Is too much. All right, let's move on.
Yep. Go ahead.
Let's talk about some split second effects, right? Let's speed things up. Let's talk about one that we haven't talked about before, and then maybe we can talk about one we have. Let's talk about sudden spoiling.
Yeah.
Okay. Sudden spoiling is 1 black for an instant split second. Remember, as long as the spell's on the stack, players can't cast spells or activated abilities, except the mana abilities. It says, until end of turn, creatures target player controls lose all abilities and have base power and toughness 0/2. Well, that just shut down the attack, didn't
That's
it?
pretty rough. Well,
And they can't respond.
well, you say things like shutting down the attack, and you're right. Because this is really good for
The
knocking
attack
out
just
somebody's
hit
Alpha Strike.
screeching halt.
Yeah. You know what also is really, really rough?
Mass burn.
I was going to say losing all abilities.
Yeah.
Holy cow. I'm sorry, you're going to combo off on this turn? Using the...
So that
No, you're not.
includes abilities that were added by other effects,
Yep.
because this is a layer that applies later in that effect. So even if it has another ability from, say, an aura, an enchantment, or something else on the board that's giving it an ability, it's all gone. It's all gone.
Yep.
It's humility, but it's black.
They are literally suddenly spoiled. It's a pretty rough card.
This is playing competitive formats.
So, okay. Sudden spoiling, competitive, really powerful card. Totally understand. A not competitive card, at least that I can see, but should be. We talked about it not too long ago. Angel's Grace.
Yes.
1 mana instant. 1 white mana instant with split second as well. You can't lose the game this turn, and your opponents can't win the game this turn. Till end of turn, damage that would reduce your life total to less than 1 reduces it to 1 instead.
Yeah.
I mean,
one of my favorites.
It's such a powerful effect.
It's your ace in the hole, Mike. All win cons shut down.
Nope. Bad. Bye. Sorry. Awesome card. So, Gauntlet of Power, awesome. You can give, as long as people are playing in the same colors, you can go ahead and give each other some extra mana, which is great. But what if you want to give everybody the same amount of mana? What if you want to give everybody
the Nintendo
stuff?
Power Glove, Mike?
If only everybody was playing black, or kind of had the ability to. So,
yeah.
Well, it's a good thing that they put Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth, back into the.
You don't have to be playing black to play this one.
Yeah, this is a famous card for good reasons. Legendary land. Each land is a swamp in addition to its other land types. So this can make things kind of nutty. Usually this is something that combos with the Cabal Coffers to get as much mana as you can possibly manage. But at the same time,
there's another purpose though.
It's a good just I've got utility lands. I want to fix it. I want to give everybody swamps.
We've talked about those spell lands, Maze of Ith, Glacial Chasm, the one that you just talked about, Mike. There's quite a few of these effects, and usually the way that people would, take advantage of those, maybe with Chromatic Lantern.
Chromatic Lantern, yeah.
But this is another option, and this is a reminder. Even though the frame is black, even though it says swamp on it, this card's color identity is colorless.
Which is so
You can run
weird.
this in any deck you want. And then it makes all of everybody's lands now also tap for black, which I think is a very nice effect to have.
It is. And at the same time, when we're talking about cards that needed a reprint because we're not talking cheap stuff.
What is it right now? It's like $30.
I'd say something around there. Well, hopefully that goes down in the near future here.
Mike, there's another land that I think we should talk about.
Sure.
And this isn't typically in the same kind of area where we talk about Urborg. This is in the set of lands like Strip Mine, like Tectonic Edge.
Those are some...
These are lands that destroy other lands.
Okay.
And there's no land destruction land better and more friendly than Field of Ruin.
Oh, I thought you were going somewhere mean, and then you went somewhere nice. I feel better.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Field of Ruin is a land. Tap, add a colorless, and it has 2 tap and sacrifice it. Destroy target non-basic land an opponent controls. Each player searches their library for a basic land card, puts it onto the battlefield untapped. Now, I say untapped, but I mean that it doesn't say tapped.
Right.
So if something taps lands as they come in, you're good.
That's Alex text.
Yes, Alex text says untapped. What I'm saying is, unless something says it doesn't come in untapped, it does. And then they'll shuffle their library. So, wow, you're ramping the whole table. Hot dog, I love it. You're ramping yourself too, because you're not really ramping yourself.
You're
but
coming out
You're
of it.
fixing yourself.
Yeah.
You're sacrificing this land, and then you're going to go get a basic to fix your colors. And then you're going to give all the other players at the table that you didn't blow their land up, they're going to get a basic, and they're going to be like, wow, thanks. That was really nice of you. And the other player's like, well, you blew my guy's cradle up, but at least you got me something out of it.
That is absolutely not what anybody says when you blow up their guy's cradle, but that's okay.
Why did you blow that up?
There you go. I'll tell you what, I feel bad that it's my turn to bring up the next card here, but I mean, if we're talking about lands, I guess we need to go to Magus of the Moon.
Okay.
2 generic and a red for a 2/2 human wizard.
This one gets my goat. I don't like these.
That says non-basic lands or mountains.
But let's talk about how this actually works.
Yeah.
Mike. Let's talk about this.
Yeah.
So, Blood Moon, right? That's the OG. That's 2 and a red, non-basic lands or mountains. What does that actually do? Why does that cause all the pain? Because it sounds nice. It sounds like Urborg, right?
Sure.
It sounds like you're allowing all these lands to tap for red as well as their other colors. But no,
it's
slow that
missing
roll.
a line there.
Slow that roll. Because it doesn't say in addition to their other types. And that means a lot here, Mike. Because this is very specific, when a land has a basic land type, it has an intrinsic mana ability corresponding with that type. If the land has the forest type, it taps for green. It doesn't have to say it on the card because it already has it there.
Sure.
Same for island, taps for blue. Same for all of the colors. They tap for their respective Same for all the land types that tap for their respective color, right? But when you change a type of a land to be a basic land type, and it doesn't say in addition to its other types, so it wipes all those types away, something else happens. And that is that land loses all of the abilities printed on the land.
Mm-hmm.
So, Gaia's Cradle, no more tapping for a bunch of green.
It's a really expensive mountain on the field.
Maze of Ith, it's a mountain. Right? So, that's something that really trips new players up, and this gets really confusing with cards that turn into lands, like a Shaya, and there's a lot of really strange interactions. We're not really going to go into it, but if you have any questions about that, you can feel free to tweet me at Lappermedic or email me at alex@edhrec.com, and we can talk about how Magus of the Moon interacts with those cards. But suffice to say, it's a layered continuous effect interaction, Mike, and it really screws people up because they can only use red mana and pay for generic and red mana costs. That's it, except for their artifacts and their creatures if they have any that tap for mana. This can really hose people.
I don't want to talk about this card anymore.
All right.
It makes me sad. Alec.
I don't like this card either,
Alec,
but I'd like to talk about the card.
That's fair. That's fair. It is a powerful effect that needs to be...
This is very, very mean. You be careful with this one.
Yup. Alex, make me feel better. Take me somewhere else.
Let's do...
By the way, good luck.
Let's mention a couple of classics,
Sure.
right? These are removal effects that pay out a bonus, right? We talked about Field of Ruin, but we have two spells that do this too, and these have been reprinted. You all know these spells already, but we're just going to gloss over them here because I love them so much, right, Mike? We got Beast Within.
Awesome.
Right? Beast Within, 2 and a green, instant, destroy target permanent. Its controller makes a 3/3 beast token.
Permanent is a
Love
big
it
thing.
so much. Yeah, destroy a land, destroy a creature, destroy an artifact, destroy a planeswalker,
Destroy a Magus
anything
of the
you
Moon.
want. Destroy a Magus of the Moon. Well, where are you making that green mana from, Mike?
Oh, no.
Now, keep that in mind. With Magus of the Moon on the stack, you can float your green mana. And then, as long as they don't push phase, which you're allowed to get priority before they push phase, you can then cast this, Beast Within, to remove that spell, even though all of your lands are mountains. The mana in your mana pool is not automatically converted to red mana.
All non-basic lands.
Right, and you can also have basic forests. Yeah,
I went away from Magus of the Moon for just a second and somehow thought that it had gotten worse. But that's good. Okay, fine. We're recovered. Okay,
so here's our other one.
Yeah,
and this is one that Mark Rosewater, the chief designer of Magic, famously says was a full color pipe break and should not have seen print. I could not agree with him more, but I love that man. Let's talk about Path to Exile.
Yeah.
Path to Exile for a single white mana. It's an instant exile target creature. Its controller may search their library for a basic land card, put that card onto the battlefield tapped, and shuffle their library. Mike, this gets rid of creatures, and it gives them a land. Or you can exile one of your tokens for 1 mana and ramp in white. Oh, doggy. That's awesome.
That's real good. It's a real good
Path to Exile is a nice spell. That's
hey,
a good
everybody.
spell.
This is a PSA. If you're not running Path to Exile in your white deck,
You probably should.
do it.
It's better than Swords to Plowshares in Commander, I think.
That's true. What else we got?
Let's talk about one that we've also mentioned this before in our Commander Legends episode. We talked about Aven Mind Sensor.
Yeah.
Right? This card was originally printed in Future Sight, and now it's back. Aven Mind Sensor, 2 and a white. Got Creature Bird Wizard, 2/1, with Flash and Flying, so you can play it at instant speed. If an opponent would search a library, that player searches the top 4 cards of that player's library instead. Now, if you were nice enough to join us for our spell table paper magic stream that we did last week, then you would have seen that I had a card in my hand, Wargate, it's a tutor, that I wanted to use, but I was completely unable to use it until the player that had Aven Mind Sensor got knocked out. Because this spell hoses the hell out of tutors. Fetch lands included, Mike.
Oh, I was super excited to have my go search for 3 forests, which turned into no. You can search the top 4 cards of your library and hope that you hit all 4s.
Boy,
I whiffed.
Did you whiff?
It was super good, super good.
One more in that group of cards that remove permanents and then give them something back. And maybe this shouldn't be in this color.
Nope.
That's just my opinion, though. Pondify is an instant for a single blue. Destroy target creature. It can't be regenerated. Its controller creates a 3/3 green ape creature token. Now, Mike, why does it make a green ape creature token? But that's not my real question, Mike. My real question is, why is this in blue? Are you serious right now? Blue already has bounce, and it has counterspells.
And then recently acquired exiling, and it's just okay.
Sick of it, Mike.
Let's take our 2 seconds of silence to be sad for the color pie.
Now, Mike, this Path to Exile is a color pie break, but not Pondify, apparently. I don't know.
That was our 2 seconds. All right, let's go ahead.
I wasn't very silent.
Yeah, well, you're silent enough. It's all right. They're breaking the color pie. You're breaking silence. It's okay. I want to talk about Manifold Key.
Yes, we talked about this one.
Yep. 1 generic for an artifact. Pay 1, tap it to untap another target artifact, or you can pay 3, tap it, and say target creature can't be blocked this turn. That's a lot of adaptability.
All right.
I feel like when you can untap other artifacts with artifacts, it feels like that's comboing.
Pretty good.
Feels like you can.
This one is resistant to combos more so than its original Voltaic Key. Voltaic Key has the first ability, 1 and tap, but it says untap target artifact. So if you were to use Voltaic Key in combination with Rings of Brighthearth, you could untap Voltaic Key and Mana Rock to make infinite mana. But this one doesn't let you do that. So you can still combo with it, but not quite as easily. But the reason why I would run this over Voltaic Key is because of that second ability.
Yeah.
And I do run this in my Emrakul deck. And my Emrakul deck has a lot of artifacts that likes the first ability, but it also has an Emrakul in it. Mm-hmm. And Emrakul likes the second ability, Unblockable.
Yep.
That's real nice. But I can also say, hey, you need to get that creature in for damage, but they have blockers, so you're worried it'll die. Let's make that unblockable. Let's get you that trigger. And now we got a political deal, Mike.
Oh, it absolutely was one of the first ads into the Arden and Jessica deck, because nothing makes me happier than, okay, I'm
when are we going to see that deck, Mike?
Here's the problem. Just like doing political cards and me not wanting to, run a Zedruu deck on spell table.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's rough.
The idea of, okay, here's all the stuff, and basically I kind of have to give them a list of things and put all these cards to the side for them to reference and then attack each other. I still might do that, don't get me wrong, because that's how excited I am to play that deck, because it does stupid stuff. But I really want to do it, and Manifold Key is one of those things where I can soup up the silliest token in the entire world with some nasty stuff and make sure that it connects. Oh, so good. What you got for us next, buddy?
Well, Mike, I have another play fair card here.
Sure.
That's Containment Priest.
Mm-hmm.
Containment Priest is the anti-flicker, anti-reanimation queen for 1 and a white, creature human cleric, 2/2 with flash.
Yeah.
If a non-token creature would enter the battlefield and it wasn't cast, exile it instead.
It's a good way to get rid of some stuff.
Good way to get rid of some stuff, Mike. Now this is very relevant because there was a change to the Magic rules that is relevant for this card. And I tweeted about this, but we never did a Judge's Corner about it. Sure. So let's talk about it now that it's gotten a reprint. So when it was June of 2020, right, that we had the rules change for Commanders where the replacement effect has been changed. Hopefully everyone knows this by now. But the way that it currently works is that if your commander dies or is put into exile, it will go to that zone, and then the next time state-based actions are checked, which is right away, you'll have the option to move it from that zone to the command zone.
Okay.
And then the second part of that rule is that if your commander would go to your hand or to your library, you can say, no, it won't ever even go there, but it goes to the command zone instead. Now, this is relevant because the way that it used to work, it's not the way that it currently works, but if your commander was coming from exile back to the battlefield, for example, if you flickered it and it comes back from exile to the battlefield, you didn't cast it.
Nope.
So it would get exiled. But Mike, it was already in exile. So the way that it used to work was that it wasn't a new instance of being put into exile. So it would just stay in exile forever. And you could never get your commander back, Mike. That was real poopy. We don't like that. So there was a rules change quite recently where the way that it works now is if a card would be exiled and it's already in exile, it is exiled again, and that gives you another opportunity to put it into the command zone.
Okay.
Right. So it's a little bit more friendly now.
That's good to hear. That entire explanation made my head hurt just a little bit.
I'm so sorry.
No, like I get it. You got the point across.
Okay.
It's just
I got to get better at that.
no. It's magic is complicated. So let's talk about something less complicated.
Sure.
How about Karavek the Merciless?
Okay.
5 generic.
Mike, you're mean today. What's going on?
Listen, we're looking at a Time Spiral remaster, and I'm starting to read it as Time Spiral real sad.
Angry.
Yes, 5 generic, a black and a red for a 5/4 legendary creature human shaman. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, Karavek the Merciless deals damage equal to that spell's converted mana cost to any target. You're talking about it being kind of like a potentially mean card, but we had a guest, wink, that actually came out and with Karavek and saying, you know what? If they cast the spell, they could pick a target. They just can't pick one.
I like that. I really like that.
Yeah. And, DJ, when he brought this up, because it was our politics episode, holy cow. I'm so glad that this came back out because this thing does some work.
Absolutely, Mike. Like, this card has a big reputation for being an extremely mean commander. It's Rakdos. It's constantly just pinging people. It's blowing up creatures. It's blowing up planeswalkers. It's reducing your life total. But I really like that idea. I liked it then and I like it now. If they played the spell, they get to point the gun.
They just can't point it at you.
They can't point it at you. It's like how I run Emrakul sometimes.
There you go.
Yeah.
What you got for me next, Alex?
Well, Mike, you're not being mean enough, so we have to go meaner.
Okay.
Yeah. Brine Elemental.
No!
Yeah, this is the pickles lock right
I'm
here.
leaving.
Right? All right, see you later. I'll run the rest of this podcast episode. Brine Elemental sees a lot of play in competitive, let's say that. 4 blue for a creature elemental. It also has Morph for 5 blue. It's a 5/4. I'm assuming you know Morph. When Brine Elemental is turned face up, each opponent skips their next untapped step. Oh my god. So if you're able to repeatedly do this effect, for example, by copying the trigger, by, just any other means of locking people
Bouncing
down.
it to your hand, putting it back down later,
replaying it,
etc.
turning it face up, stopping people from untapping during their untap step is one of the single most infamous mean effects in Magic. We got Stasis, we got Winter Orb, we got Static Orb, and we got Brine Elemental, Mike.
And I guess one of the
Don't play this.
Yeah.
Unless your group is very comfortable with hard locks, do not play Brine Elemental. But if they are comfortable with it, go crazy, because this card's super powerful.
I feel so bad saying the next card, but it synergizes with it. If you want to be able to repeat Brine Elemental, one of the ways you could is by playing Crystal Shard, 3 generic artifacts.
Hey!
For 3 generic and tapping it, or a single blue and tapping it. Return target creature to its owner's hand unless its controller pays 1. Now, yeah, this could be something.
It's like a Radic Portal.
Yeah, this could be something where you're bouncing somebody else's creature back to their hand when they're tapped out. That's not what it's used for. That's not what you use this for.
And you're not paying 3.
No, you're not.
You're paying a blue.
You're paying blue to bounce something unless you pay 1.
And you're not paying the 1.
You ain't paying 1. Because you're doing it on purpose. Hooray, repeatable bounce. All right. Fantastic. Wow. This set has slivers in it, too. What's going on with this set?
We're not going to talk about slivers, but what I do like about these slivers is if you're playing a sliver mirror match, you got to be careful because these are the old school slivers that affect the whole board.
All slivers, yeah. So,
yeah.
Oh my gosh, I just thought about what the actual doing a draft setting of this set. It's like, oh yeah, okay. So we're looking at some mean stuff. Cool. Alex, What you got?
Well, let's talk about, how about the extra turn spell that's unlike any other extra turn spell in the game? Walk the Eons.
Yeah.
Walk the Eons is 4 blue for a sorcery with buyback, and the buyback cost is sacrifice 3 islands. So, as you cast the spell, you may also sacrifice 3 islands. If you do, when it resolves, you bounce it back to your hand.
Mm-hmm.
And the effect says, target player takes an extra turn. So, this is the kind of extra... Now, there's a lot of extra turn spells, Mike, that do say target player, so you can gift it if you choose to.
Sure.
But this is the only one where you can gift it and then re-gift
it.
Mm-hmm.
It's the repeatable. Oh, boy.
You be careful giving someone an extra turn. I'm speaking from experience. That is power.
Are you Emrakul player?
Yes, Emrakul likes to give players extra turns. Mike, do you have a problem with that?
Not today. I've got a problem with some of the cards I'm looking at, but overall, not so much. I'll tell you what, we've talked about some pretty powerful things. Some of it super mean, some of it potentially less mean. Let's talk about something that's just about choices. So, Tasigur, the Golden Fang, 5 generic and a black for a 4/5 human shaman legendary creature with Delve. Each card you exile from your graveyard while casting the spell pays for 1. So,
oh my word!
Really good way of being able to get it back out there.
The spell costs black, is what it costs. It costs 1 mana.
Pretty much. Also has the ability for 2 generic and then hybrid mana, blue-green, hybrid mana, blue-green. So a total of 4 mana to put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard. Then return a non-land card of an opponent's choice from your graveyard to your hand. You want to talk politics? You want to talk about making a friend? And you want to talk about getting advantage while you're doing this?
I love it.
Ooh.
I want to build this deck.
Yeah?
Yeah. I want to build this deck with the theme of every card involves players choosing.
Okay.
That's how I want to build it. Now... that's a little bit difficult to build, but
yeah.
We're just keeping that in the backlog, you know.
Every card that you can, because otherwise there's going to be a certain limit to what you got. But
they're going to have choice paralysis.
I do like it. That might be one that you and I have to test off stream before we play.
Now, Mike, this is one of the cheapest commanders for its value that you'll ever see.
Yeah.
Mike, this card is under 50 cents. So if you're looking for a budget commander option with a lot of fun build avenues, Tasigur.
I'm just sitting here trying to understand the fact that it makes itself cheaper, and the fact that
it can pay for its own commander tax,
and it puts cards into the bin that you also get to get back depending on the deals and the conversations that you have.
Plus, you're in blue, you can reduce the cost of that activated ability significantly.
And you're in green, so you can ramp at the same time.
You're in Sultai, which is the best 3-color wedge and or shard. Don't quote me.
Tasigur is good. And you know what? At the same time, you can absolutely make this and not make it a mean deck. Mm-hmm. And that is something that is limited with some of the cards that we talked about. So
we've talked about some real min stuff, and I just want to make sure, because we get excited. I get excited,
sure.
Get that evil grin.
Yeah.
But mean cards are only fun when people are expecting you to play mean, right? Don't cram your deck full of super mean cards unless everyone at your pod, at your play group, at your local game store is cool with that kind of play. Like, sure, Magus of the Moon in your mono red deck is probably the best card in your entire deck. Mm-hmm. But be careful, because cards that lock players out of avenues of play can cause feel bad situations. So here's my recommendation. We've talked about this in a previous episode. If you want to make a mean deck, but mean decks that you can't really slip them by in your LGS because people play nice, why don't you just try at the end of the night, say, hey, everybody, why don't we all play our best decks, our meanest decks? Mm-hmm. And then everyone's expecting the feel bad situation, so it doesn't burn as hard.
That does help. Help. Don't run some of these cards if you're looking for a lasagna.
You don't want these to be surprises.
Yeah.
Especially not Brine Elemental. Holy moly.
No.
For store balance, like you got to be careful with some of these.
Yeah. And speaking of lasagna tier,
Yeah.
we
got a special announcement.
We're going to do that in the future / yesterday because time is wimbly bimbly in the podcasting recording world. But we're super excited to be doing that. We're super excited for this set. Alex, any closing thoughts on the set? Or, I mean, you summed it up pretty well as far as, hey, you're going to play some mean stuff. Make sure people know.
Yeah, I just want to say this is a nice set. It's a good reprint set. I'm happy to see so many political and symmetrical and mean cards in it. Mm-hmm. So many good options. It's just, I think that's we saw a nice reply on Twitter. We both saw it, Mike. That's it was our friend that we just played with, Peter from Modern Whiteboarder, mm-hmm. right? He said that this set release is nice because everyone has been very civil about it. Nobody's really been vitriolic about like, oh, I can't believe they reprinted that card, or I can't believe they didn't reprint this card. Everyone's just like, everyone's being pretty chill. It's been nice, frankly.
Mm-hmm. It's a really good
I know
stuff.
I'm the one out here who wants the good reprints. Yeah. There's some good reprints in here.
There is. And reprints is probably an episode that we should make in the future.
I agree.
But that I do want to adopt that. Well, not adopt because it's already something that we do for the most part, I think. I do want to keep that context in line where it's being civil. Like, these are the things that we'd like to see. But it's a complicated game. There's a lot of it. So we'll do our best.
All right.
So thank you for listening, everybody. This has been our set review as far as the cards that we're excited about for Time Spiral Remastered. If you want to follow us for anything, Alex, where can people find you?
You can tweet me at LapperMedic, Lapper Medic. You can email me directly at alex@edhrec.com if you just want to chat. I'm happy to hear from all of you. And Mike, we have a weekly Paper Magic Spell Table stream on Thursdays now.
Yeah,
Well, we had our first one.
Well, right. It's from this point in the future, if you're listening.
The first annual.
Yes, exactly. Annual means we're only doing it once, man.
The first weekly.
There we go. If you've enjoyed the conversation, please subscribe and rate the podcast. Just like Alex said, if you want to see us play cards with real life people in the Magic community,
you see my hands, not my face.
Yes. Well, I mean, we're there. They can hear us. We're not holograms, is all I'm saying. You can join us on Thursday nights on twitch.tv/The Social Contract Pod. Hey, that's us. Last week we played with DJ Jumbo Commander and Peter from Mono White Border.
DJ Peter, thank you so much.
So fun.
That was great. And thank you to all our listeners who came out and watched and chatted with us.
Yeah.
That was so much fun. It was so much fun that it inspired us to want to continue doing that, Mike.
So, and part of that is, we talked about it before, but yesterday / this week, we're going to be joined by Rachel and Dan from the Commander Sphere podcast. So,
oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
We're going to be playing some lasagna tier, and I'm very excited about that. So if you want to buy any of the cards that we've talked about, deck boxes, sleeves, etc., any of the cards that you're going to see on Thursday, you can support us by going to bit.ly/EDH_social. If you have any questions or comments for us, follow us on Twitter at EDH_social or email us at thesocialcontractedh@gmail.com. Very excited to play this game. Very excited for this set. Very excited to talk to you all soon.